These are the 3 potential new members to join Cross Guild in the future, and the third will possibly be the most crazy addition to this already immensely broken crew. You see, Oda has set up one of the best side plots in any form of media with the reveal of this Buggy for Pirate King storyline. And with crewmates like Crocoboy and Mihawk, it really does seem possible. But with the future additions that I'll be discussing today, it's all but certain that he will achieve the goal that so many dream of achieving. Buggy D Clown will be the Pirate King. Now, this extremely overpowered crew was made by Crocodile and Mihawk to essentially fight back against the world government's control over the world, with Crocodile bringing the money and Mihawk bringing the power. They were certain that nothing could stop them, but what they didn't foresee as a problem is the lack of fame or clout that they both possess. But fear not, as a shiny cloutful light would fall into their lap in the form of a certain clown, Buggy D Clown. Because think about it, next to Luffy, he possesses arguably the most respect in the world. And I wish that was a joke, but this guy, this clown-like figure, is one of the most feared pirates in the known world. He has so much clout that he's practically swimming in the stuff. But now we fast forward some time and we see an announcement setting Buggy as their captain and the new Yonko of the sea. Something Mihawk and Crocodile will be pissed about in the beginning, but would soon see it as an escape plan for the future if something goes wrong. Because they could essentially just give the government Buggy's head in exchange for their freedom, and there's really nothing he could do to stop them if that came about. But what I think is perfect about this entire setup is Buggy has arguably more power than both Mihawk and Crocodile do in this current position. And no, I'm not talking about fighting power. That'd be crazy. Like, this is Mihawk we're talking about. He's been in the top 3 strongest for the last 20 years for a reason. No, what I'm talking about is the fact that Mihawk and Crocodile need Buggy far more than he needs them. Because think about it, they can't convince his crew to follow them, due to the loyalty that they actually have for Buggy. And they can't just kill Buggy and take the crew, because as we said before, they would not follow them after what they have done to Buggy. Realistically, all they can actually do is beat him up over and over again, but that's it. They could never hope to achieve what he has, and honestly I don't think anyone, including Luffy, could achieve this level of failure in an upwards direction. He is truly one of a kind. But another thing I'd like to point out is the reactions that both Mihawk and Crocodile had after Buggy's speech, and how it perfectly reflects their personalities and experiences. First, Crocodile is pissed about the whole thing as he has a better understanding than even Buggy does, as he knows there is no going back from this point forward. He himself understands that he has only really 2 options at this point. Either he leaves the crew and suffers an incredible financial loss, or he goes ahead and finds the One Piece, which most likely would lead to his death. And the second reaction, which interests me far more, is Mihawk's. You see, in this moment he seems kind of fearful, as being the powerhouse in the crew and the one with the most experience fighting strong figures like Shanks, he knows that he has now been committed to fighting not one Yonko on this path, but 2 others in the form of Luffy and Blackbeard, which is exactly the opposite of what he wanted to do. But you see, Mihawk, like many of us, just wants a peaceful life far away from any disturbances. And another aspect that's likely weighing on his mind is the fact that both his crewmates have already lost to one of these Yonkos, and are likely to do it again if they faced against him. So you see, why he may be fearful in this moment is probably because he realizes that it's a one-man army against the world. Or is it? So now that we've explained everything that you need to know about Cross Guild and the crew members that's in it, let's begin our deep dive into the future members that are likely to join on this journey to becoming the Pirate Kings. Now, first off, in one of the panels following Roger's execution, we see Buggy alongside both Mihawk and Crocodile, potentially foreshadowing their future team-up. But also in this panel, we see 2 other characters who are likely to join Cross Guild as well, due to the fact that one of them is currently locked up in Impel Down without a crew or any means of escape, and the other was recently held by Blackbeard. Now, the first at least to join will be Gecko Moria, due to the setup already taking place in the form of Perona. You see, Perona and Mihawk just have one of the most perfect relationships in the series, and as duos go in One Piece, they might just be my all-time favorite pair. But with the lack of info on Moria, with him not appearing in Hachinosu during Garp's attack, many believe that Perona has likely already freed him from Blackbeard's capture, and is on her way to the only person strong enough to protect them, Mihawk. Now, if this is true, then Moria becoming the newest member to join Cross Guild is all but already certain. But next on that same panel that I previously mentioned is Daffy Doflamingo. Now, Daffy isn't just likely to return, but is also the most requested character by fans to join this crew. He is currently locked up in Impel Down without any means of escape, but given that both Crocodile and Buggy were already prisoners in Impel Down and likely know the knowledge to get him out, this could potentially lead to a prison break, which would also help them to not only gain a powerhouse like Daffy, but also the loyalty of the other prisoners who are in there as well. And a side note, this could also lead to my favorite character of all time also being freed from Impel Down and gaining that much needed freedom that he most definitely deserves, which would just be absolutely perfect and really would make my year. It's Bankrai, the legend himself, who many don't realize is actually still alive and locked up in Impel Down. But let's get back on topic. Now, Daffy joining Crocodile is backed up by the fact that he wanted to team up with him all the way back in Marineford. Just back then, it was Crocodile who had nowhere to go, and Daffy being the one offering him a position on his crew. Not to mention, if Buggy does lead the charge in freeing the prisoners from Impel Down a second time, he will gain the notoriety as the man who brings about freedom in the world, which may even lead to the undeserved title of Nika. the bringer of freedom, which would be incredibly crazy for us the viewers as we already know who he really is, a cowardly weakling with no real power. But now let's do a brief recap. We have Moria alongside Perona on their way to Mihawk for protection, which will lead to them both joining Cross Guild in the future. And we also have a potential prison break for Doffy, which will force him to side with them at least for the time being. And now if you remember in the beginning I said there were 3 potential new members joining in the future, and the third option is the craziest. That's because this character is a princess and enemy of Crocodile. It's Vivi Nefertari. Now I know I just recently made a video talking about how she was on her way to the Straw Hats for protection from Emu and the world government. But while I was in the process of editing that video I had another crazy thought. So we know she has nowhere left to go and is potentially the most wanted person on the face of the earth, which has led many to think that she'll meet up and rejoin Luffy and the others in either Egghead or Elbaf, as she is in desperate need for Yonko's protection. This is something I do agree with, but that would also go off of the assumption that Luffy is the nearest Yonko to her right now, which may not actually be the case. What if the nearest Yonko to her right now is Buggy? Now Morgans, who has no real reason to keep her around, might just drop her off with them and have it away on his balloon. This would make for a very interesting interaction between Crocodile and Vivi, as Crocodile is essentially one of the Yonkos of that crew, and as we know she hates his guts after everything he did years ago in Alabasta. And honestly, the more I think about it, the more it begins to make sense, as it would also give her the chance to rejoin Luffy much later when both crews reach Laugh Tale, and have that Davy back fight that I still believe will happen by the end of the story. As if you think about it, we have yet to get an explanation on why the Foxy arc was not considered a filler arc, but it was actually a canon part of the current One Piece story. Like, the only reason I can see for this arc being connected to the current story of One Piece is for the potential Davy back fight system to return, as that was really the only new thing that we learned from that fairly pointless arc. I believe the Straw Hats will have a Davy back fight versus Cross Guild in the future, as it would allow them to regain their lost member in the form of Vivi, and it would also allow for matchups like Zoro versus Mihawk and Sanji versus Crocodile, which would be honestly amazing for fans who love to discuss how Sanji and Zoro would match up against Luffy's previous opponents. What do you guys think? Are these the 3 most likely new members of Cross Guild, or is there someone I missed out on? And do you believe in the potential future Davy back fight between the Straw Hats and Cross Guild? Let me know down below. But with that, that's going to do it for me in this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and peace.